And I think we are just waiting for Jon Doust. He is joining the meeting as we speak. And I think something's happening. There he is. Jon, there he is. Are you in a helicopter?
Yes.
What are you doing?
I've got the headset on.
You look
That's how I work.
Yeah,
Because you see this.
Yes.
If I don't, and if I don't, I can't. You see?
Now, keep in mind, Jon, there's going to be people listening just to the audio of this as well as the video. So go on the visual communication.
Can't help myself.
I understand. That's fine.
Now I noticed what you've got behind you there.
That was an accident.
Oh yeah, sure.
Now he's going visual again. For the people playing at home with no video.
What, are we on already?
Yeah, you've given me a hard out. Now, hang on. Let me just explain to the people listening.
Okay.
We had this meeting scheduled at 12, and Jon has just messaged me at 11:42, telling me we have to go now. He's green lighting it right now. So he's given me a hard out, which is what we call in the broadcasting business a time where we have to stop because members of his family have to sleep, both young and old.
Perhaps I should explain for those folks. We are grandparents, as you are not. We are grandparents. You are the parent of very sensible, rational human beings. We are grandparents of a 4-year-old, irrational, totally dysfunctional, tiny little person who requires constant attention.
You must be getting on very well then together, Jon.
I'm not one of those. In fact, I'm one of those who hates constant attention. I'm a natural extrovert. There's no question about that. But I'm what we call in the business of extroversion, introversion, a reflective extrovert, which means I require a lot of time in repose, reflecting, thinking, considering. Now, may I ask you the same question? Would you consider yourself an extrovert or an introvert? If I may explain in Jungian terms, an extrovert is a person who's charged up gets fired up, gets energized by the world outside of him or her. An introvert really is charged up by an inner world. I am charged up by both, but primarily the outer world. How would you describe yourself?
Now, do I need to change this chair that I'm sitting on for a couch?
No, but you'll need water.
Okay. Oh, jeez. Okay.
It is. I found it on the beach, and I cleaned it up. Yeah. I cleaned it up. It's only water.
Now, Jon's doing visual work again. He's holding up a bottle of a 1 liter bottle of vodka, which it's only water.
Yeah.
I am on the very, very left of the introversion spectrum, Jon. I'm terrified of the outside world. I don't like it. I don't get excited about it, and I wish it didn't exist. And I don't want any part of
it. which will account for the fact that I rarely see you in the street.
Exactly. Yeah. Except when I need money and I'll take my bowl out. And, no, not for me. Not for me. But I'm forced to participate in it like everyone else. So.
I'm going to also issue a challenge. How long does this thing go, by the way? How long are we going to be talking?
Well, like I said, you've given us a hard out. So.
I know. What?
Well, I was going to say I'd rather you give me a hard out than a hard on, so that's okay. So I think we're ahead, so to speak. No pun intended. But
I tell you what, some relief to me as well. And if that had been the case, I would have added, "Oh, I'm very glad you're an inside person."
Yeah, the hard out would have got even closer. I think we're going till if nap time's 12:30, then I think we should go till 12:29 at the very least.
All right. Because I've chosen a passage from your book I'm going to read.
Okay, that's very interesting, Jon, because we're launching your book, but we're going to read a passage from my book. Is that what's happening?
Oh, I thought we were launching both books.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's launch both books. Absolutely. Classic.
Really, this is
classic.
This is not. really, this whole business is really, and it's very narcissistic of us to be thinking of ourselves at a time like this. Essentially, what we want is people to read these books. I want people to read your book, and I know, without you say, allow me to speak on your behalf. I know you want people to read my book.
I do.
And it's kind of strange to be thinking about it at a time like this when we should be thinking almost. But, you know, I'm reading it while we're going through this. I'm reading the history of the Spanish flu. And a number of commentators have said, oh, this is worse than the Spanish flu. It is not worse than the Spanish flu. The Spanish flu killed somewhere in the vicinity of 60 million people after World War I. The other thing about the Spanish flu is that it hit a lot of young people, primarily young men of European theatre of war, and it was brought back, and it came in a number of ways. It began, by the way, in the US, in Kansas, was taken to Europe by US soldiers, and eventually returned to the US by US soldiers. It came to Australia, obviously, from returned soldiers. It was the first wave in 1918, and it was thought that was just an ordinary old flu because news hadn't caught up and they hadn't coined a name for it. They called it the Spanish flu, by the way, because the King of Spain, Carlos, I think his name was, Goose, whoever there was, he got the flu, so they decided to call it the Spanish flu. Could have called it King Carlos flu. Anyway.
Okay. But it was really the Kansas flu. Is that what you're saying?
It was really the Kansas flu. Absolutely.
How did they trace it back to there?
They traced because there was no evidence of it in Europe. The first diagnosed case was a US soldier coming out of Kansas.
And did he work at a wet market in Kansas, John?
A wet market? No, he was in a soldiery, an army training camp.
A soldiery army training camp.
They train soldiery people.
Yeah, very good, very good.
All right. And the first recorded case in Australia was a returned Australian soldier from Europe. He was in Melbourne. In fact, I think he went between Sydney and Melbourne, and at one point, I think Sydney called it the Melbourne flu and the Melbourne called it the Sydney flu.
Yeah, right.
Maybe I made that up, but that's what would have gone on anyway. All right.
Right.
Well, I think I've spoken too long. Do I have to, given you're an introvert, I have to talk all the time? Is that what you're saying?
You've got another 28 minutes to go.
Perhaps you'd like to sing a song.
Oh, yeah, we can. If it comes to that, John, we can always do that. And we can use up 3 or 4 minutes of me trying to tune the guitar as well. So, there's plenty of stuff to do in the meantime.
Good.
Yeah.
Read a passage from your book.
If I hold your book up before you
read
this, is that coming up on the camera on the right way? Because it's backwards when I look at it.
I know that's a funny thing about the camera. It does that. Yes, it's coming up on my screen. It comes up the right way. Maybe that's just the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah, who knows, John? The way you look at things, who knows? Who knows what's happening?
Yes, exactly. Right. And this, by the way, is your book.
Oh, that's coming up as well. Yeah, look at that.
Look at that. Oh, well, I'm not surprised. Oh my God, look at that. Look at that. Look behind you. Look at there. Which side? Look at that.
Oh,
see?
Very interesting.
Amazing. Isn't that crazy? Should have set something up.
Yeah.
So I've you asked me to write something about your book, and I had no idea you're going to steal it and fail to pay me any royalties. It's turned up on the back of your book.
Yeah.
And here it is. I'm going to read that first because the passage I'm going to read really is evidence of the point that I make.
So again, this is classic. This is classic extrovert here, because before you read a passage from my book, you're actually going to read a bit of your writing that's on my book first.
It's not classic extrovert at all. No, it's classic. No, it's classic.
Classic narcissist.
No. It's what you know what it is. It's classic professional speaking comedy kind of thing.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, it is, because basically I'm doing the setup rather than just I could read it the other way around. Would you prefer I read it the other way around?
So hang on. So you're
First
being
the passage.
you're being your own straight man and the gag man.
Yes.
Oh, this
Yes.
is interesting.
I should point out that I spent, I don't know, 20, 30 years performing either as a comedian or as a speaker or a radio guest person. And so you don't just suddenly launch into something. Usually there's a setup involved. So,
Yes.
all right.
Yeah, I don't know these.
Are there any further questions?
No, just let me write that down.
My narcissistic wound is a separate issue.
Okay.
As is yours, and we may touch on it over the next half hour, but I don't think we want to go into it deeply.
No, I don't think that's a good idea at all.
Here we go. This is a grueling book, much of it set in a prison, full of horror, madness, and dark humour. You will learn about people who live in the hell that is society's underbelly, home to folk you have never met and pray you never do. Adam Morris does not spare the reader, and neither should he, because we are all complicit. The rot at our core is a collective responsibility. Bird is a must-read. The prisoners from Unit 6 in the afternoon were never any trouble either. They were always fairly subdued, quiet, and polite, unlike mainstream prisoners. They were a strange blend of well-meaning pedophiles and dope fiends, unable to lock into a reasonable sexual appetite or square their debts with the rest of the prison. The disdain held for the rock spiders, as the other prisoners called them, filtered its way to the teaching staff as well, and Daniel was no exception. They were a special subset of subhumans who'd done such unspeakable things they were excluded from being treated decently by anyone. They did as they were told, and in a world filled with people aching to tell somebody what to do, they were the perfect subordinate. Now, that is a cursory description of the kind of depths that this man plummets. In many passages in this book, he plumbs the depths, and you will read it and be filled with the horror of this subset and other subsets, and you will hope, and you, if you do such a thing, pray, you will, that you never meet these people, not outside your front door, not in your street, not in your suburb, not in your city. More importantly, not in your house.
Well said, John. That's good. You actually picked the one paragraph of good writing out of the whole book. I really appreciate that. That was great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Now, tell me this, Adam, just to clear it up for the reader, you are not one of those people described just by me in the book. You are one of the observers of these people. You, in fact, worked, did you not, as a prison officer?
Yeah. No, not as an officer. No.
Oh, as a kitchen hand? What? As what? No, you were a cleaner. What?
That's your book.
So that's right. That's my book.
No. I was a guitar teacher in prison.
Ah.
And then sometimes they threw me into the art room, and sometimes they threw me into the kitchen to teach me how to cook shepherd's pies and things.
So while you were there, people told you stories.
That's all. That's all. That's basically what prison is people telling stories to each other.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I wish I'd been there. I wish I'd never been there. I wish I'd been there. I wish I'd never been there.
Yeah, but life on the kibbutz would probably be similar in the way that everyone is voluntarily self-trapped. Not trapped, but they're in the same space. I suppose the kibbutz would just be an orgy of stories.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Continuously, because on TV with 150 people watching it.
Yeah, and sometimes orgies.
And sometimes just orgies.
Yeah, it's sometimes just orgies.
You'd get a lot of stories out of those orgies. You wouldn't have to have another orgy for a while.
I don't know if I want to describe an orgy, but
No.
let me.
Now, I saw some of your
Let me.
photos. You look very handsome. Not that you don't now, but you look like a young Paul Hogan in some of those old photos.
Yeah. Look, I a lot of people who know us, the broader family, think of our grandchild as being a direct descendant from me, as he is, of course, because he's my grandchild.
Yes.
But because he's a very good looking boy, and he's very charming,
Okay.
and he's very cheeky, and I think my blessing was that I was reasonably well formed. I was quite a wiry, strong boy. I had a what they used to call a shock of blonde hair,
Yes.
and I had a kind of charm, I guess. And growing up at the time that I did, manners and the way you presented yourself in public, these were very important. Our mother in particular played great store in manners. When a woman entered the room, you had to stand up. We sat at the we upright at the table. Grace was said before the meal. We were taught table manners, how to behold the knife and fork. I remember my father sitting at the end of the table with a strap to ensure that we conducted ourselves appropriately at dinner table. Now, of course, I became a hippie and rebelled against everything. I taught myself to eat badly so I'd fit in with everybody else.
Yes.
But in fact, I've just written a piece about it and put it on my blog. I think although my parents really only taught you these things because they were the things that were taught by those sort of people at our level in society. That's why they taught them. But looking back, I see the great benefit of them. The great benefit of them to me and people like me, I think, if they hung on to them, was this awareness of the benefits of restraint. And it also taught us, it informed us about, I don't think it taught us self-discipline, but it informed us about the value of self-discipline. So all my life, I've had an ability to restrain, although reading the books, obviously I wasn't always able to restrain myself, but I've understood it. And once I got to a point of balance, I returned to those strengths. And I remember my father said to me once, long after I'd given up booze and smoke and so on, I'm now, by the way, interestingly, longer as an adult, clean and sober than pissed and stoned.
How long have you actually been, John, just for the record?
How long have I been clean and sober?
Yeah.
Since 1986, May 13. I don't want to be precise, but May 13.
What time of day was it, John?
So next month, that'll be my 34th anniversary of sobriety.
Wow.
And I remember my father said to me once, long after I'd been clean, we were talking about self-discipline. He said, the trouble with you was you never had any self-discipline. I said, oh yeah? What about your 4 boys? How many of your 4 boys continued to exercise and engage in physical activities their entire lives? How many of them? I said, how many people visit you here in your house in Bunbury? Who live in Bunbury? How many people visit you here and go to the beach and run and swim and surf? How many? He said, okay, well, what was that about then, all that drug taking and so on? I said, oh yeah, but I took those drugs with intense discipline.
Okay. Yes, John. Yes.
I took them regularly and I took them consistently. Yes. And I only took them to experiment in order to pave the way for the youth, the young people of the future.
You weren't even doing it for yourself.
I wasn't even doing it for myself. It wasn't about my narcissistic wound. It was about my gift for future societies.
I need to get as high as possible and have as many orgies as possible for you, not for me. For you?
No, not for you. For my children and my children's children.
Now, do you tell your grandchild this? He's in a moment of reflection. You tell him?
No, but he's been here now 3 weeks, and I'm trying to get across to him the value of doing a thing that's not about him, but it's about a contribution to the people with whom he's living.
Okay, but that doesn't include getting high and having orgies.
He's only 4.
Yeah, okay.
It's probably a bit early.
Maybe next year.
Oh, look,
maybe next year.
Actually, it's an interesting question because one of the things I did with my son, because I didn't talk to my father really until he was about my age now. In fact, a little bit later. I started talking to my father when he was about 73. Then we had open and honest conversations, the kind of conversations I wanted to have with him when I was 15. But with my son, I started attempting open and honest conversations with him when he was about 8 or 9, which was too early. It was too early. He found them very uncomfortable.
Why do you think it would be too early to be honest with
because he found them very awkward. What I used to do, I would get him aside, just him and me, and I'd say, okay, now I want to ask you, how am I going as a father? Is there any area I've let you down? Have I disappointed you anywhere? Have I made you angry? And then, of course, I had the right to ask him the same questions. I mean, I had the right to answer the same questions as though he had asked them. Now he found that very awkward, but in the long term, it played out handsomely because he and I now are able, given that he's a deeply introverted man like you, he's working from home now. I called him the other day. I said, "How's it going?" He said, "My dream has come true. I don't have to leave I don't have to leave the house. I work from home. I don't have to leave the house."
Beautiful.
So I said, but now that cultural attribute that we have, that we share, this willingness and desire to speak openly and honestly with your parent, with your child, continues. So we are now able to, when he's ready for it, given he's a deep introvert, when he's ready for it, we have open and honest communication, and I know it's of value to both of us.
Oh, unquestionably, absolutely, unquestionably. There was a beautiful moment towards the end of Return Ticket where you are connecting with your father, almost like for the first time. But when you say you didn't talk to him until that time, you mean you didn't properly talk to him, because you did. You were in communication with him, but is that what you mean by that?
Yes. I mean, open and honest conversation. Yeah, I mean, I remember Jack Muir's father is a lot like my father was, but the story, because I don't know if you realize, Adam, but it's a book. You see, it's a book, and that's
here.
Yeah, and yeah, there it is, same book. Yeah, and
they make
that's
two.
how thick.
Did they make two?
Yeah, make two. Yeah, they're sold out. Sorry, if you want a copy.
Oh, yeah.
And that's every so often someone says, "Is that your life, John?" I say, look at it. See how thick it is?
Yeah.
That's a book. Okay, that's the last bit of the life of Jack Muir. My life is a continuum. I'm still living my life. A book about my life would be as long as my life. You'd never get through it. You'd have to spend your life reading the book about my life. Yeah. Not my life. This is a book. So my father died in 2002. Jack Muir's father dies in last year before. So because, and as you well know, that's one of the thing about creating a work of fiction, is that you get to alter everything to suit the purpose of the book. But yes, my father, I remember specifically the first conversation we had. He was about 73. I was in his house in Bunbury, and he was pulling the curtain, and he suddenly said,
John, sorry,
what happened?
Every time you touch the wire, it crackles.
Yeah. Oh, I don't. What, like this? Is that crackling?
No, that's not the wire, John. That's the microphone. The wire is
the wire. What wire are you referring
to? The computer.
Oh,
You're
I see. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. I won't touch the
crackling and
computer.
bubbling like a box of cheap cereal, John.
Damn it. We don't have any of that in this house. So, he's pulling the curtains and he turns and he suddenly says, "What was I like as a father?" And I said to him, because my father was a blunt man, he spoke directly. I said, "You were shit, but you got better. And that's why we're going to have this conversation."
Right.
And then we had that conversation.
How old was he at that time?
He was about 73, 74.
And how old were you?
I was, oh, geez. No. 20, well, so I was 50 odd.
And you told him he was shit.
50. I was about 50. I told him he was shit. Yeah.
And how long?
Straight.
Yeah. And how did he take it?
He took it well. My father would enjoy return ticket. I know that. My mother would not. My mother was a woman who battled depression all her life. She couldn't. I'd completed Boy. I hadn't, no, but I was writing Boy in a While while she was alive, but I knew it could not come out until she was dead.
Okay.
But I had nothing to do with her death, by the way, just to make that clear. So, because she didn't know those stories. She didn't know the stories of the boarding school. She did, and if she had read the book and believed the story, well, she would have believed the stories. She would have been devastated, because she told me a year or two before she died that every time we were sent back to boarding school, she cried for 3 weeks. But she could not stop it, because she grew up on a farm. Her father was a dirt farmer, in other words, a poor farmer, and he was a womanizer and a drunk. She had a horrible home life. She married my father in 1946. My father was another level in the local society, and he had gone away to school. His father had gone away to school. It was a long tradition in his family. All his sisters had gone to PLC. So he and all those at his level in the local society had all gone away to school. There was no question. If he and she had children, they would be going away to school. She couldn't argue, but she hated it.
Yeah. But when you say she wouldn't like this book, or this book here,
yeah,
I disagree. I think she would love this book, because.
Oh, you knew my mother.
I know yours, mother, John. And when you say that 1.5 inches of paper is not your life, that 1.5 inches of paper is a distillation of your life. So in a sense, it is your life. And I think the way you portray your mother in this book made me cry when I read it.
Oh, good. Thank you.
I think she would actually love this book, because
if she loved it, she would hate to love it.
Well, like I said, I'm very good friends with your mother, so I don't hate to love it.
Look, I don't know.
Let me just say, how you portray your mother in this book makes her more courageous than Jason and the Argonauts, and it made me cry. It made me weep. Now I'll cry over a toilet paper commercial for Betty, Hannah, and okay, right, yeah.
Look, I'm only guessing, of course, because she's not here. I don't know, but my mother did. You're right. My mother, essentially, there's a bit in the book where my mother, where Jack's mother hands her a check, and that's fairly close to what happened. I'm living in I'm living in Bridgetown. I'm not very happy. There's a war raging in Israel, and my mother comes to me with a check, and she she can't. It's so clear in my mind. She can't quite hand me the check, but she's got it in her hand. My father is standing beside her, and she says, "Your father and I have decided to offer you this money."
Yeah.
I forget exactly how much. It was an odd amount, but my mother, whenever she gave you money, it was always an odd amount. She would say, "Oh, I've brought some money for you just to help you get through." When we were students, for example, she might say, "I've just brought some." Well, for example, when my wife and I got married, she sent us a check for $24.73 or something. It was weird. It was odd.
Yeah.
And my guess was she was walking down the street. She saw a nice dress, and she thought, "Oh, how much is that? $24.73. Okay, I'll send that." So this check, it wasn't $400, it wasn't $500, it was something like $497. I don't know how she got to the figure, but what she said to me was, "We would like you to use this money to seek psychological help or pay for a return ticket to Israel."
Yes.
I mean, what kind of a that's my mother, who left school when she was 14, who was brutalized by her father, by nuns in the convent, and here she is. She's saying to me, "Here's some money. Get yourself sorted out, or put your life at risk."
Yeah. John, honestly,
What?
it was
What?
brilliant.
Amazing.
And what made it extra poignant? And I don't know if you did this consciously or subconsciously, but you set it up about 150 pages earlier.
The setup, Adam, is crucial.
The straight man and the gag man. Yeah.
The setup is crucial, as my dad would say. He used to say crucial, and I'd say to him, "What do you mean crucial? It's not crucial. It's crucial."
What's crucial?
I said, "Dad, it's what's crucial? It's crucial." And he would say to me, "Everybody is allowed to mispronounce at least one word." I said, "Oh, is that so, Did?"
All right, that was a very cheap gag. That was very cheap.
Yeah, I know. But it's a true story.
Now, now tell me, was the setup, was it conscious or was it subconscious? Oh, sorry. No, you can't say no to two separate questions, John. You just got asked, do you like blue or red? And you said no. Okay.
Yes. That's
yes.
one of the.
I like blue and red.
One of the great lessons. One of the great lessons of comedy is the setup.
Mm-hmm.
The setup is crucial.
The setup is
yes.
Crucial. Okay. So
exactly.
I'm now going to put you to the test, John.
Tell me.
Now this is the return ticket test.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Now, I don't know if it's conscious or if it's subconscious. Whichever way it played out was brilliant, and you deserve all the credit for it. What was the setup for the later profundity when your mother handed you the check in the book?
Oh, what was the setup?
What was the setup?
Oh, yeah. You want the
I could see it, and I'd actually prefer if you didn't know it consciously.
Okay.
I'd actually.
All right. Don't tell.
But I don't.
Okay. Don't tell me then.
I won't tell you. It's a test, John.
So here's the thing about the.
You're cracking.
A guy. Oh, sorry. I touched it. So, where's my phone? Here's a guy sent me this the other day.
Oh, you're crackling like.
Oh, damn it, man!
You're crackling like a shoulder of pork in a hot oven.
Okay, what's that? How's that? Is that better?
Yeah, if you stop moving, if you stay still. Now we've lost your audio. Oh, jeez.
Oh, have you? Oh, hang on.
Now we're back. Oh, now we've got the crackle again.
Have you got me back? You got the audio?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah. Yes.
Here's the thing.
No, you're dropping in and out, and you're crackling now.
Well, I'm not doing anything now.
You're moving.
How's that?
Yeah, that's good.
I just pushed the plug back in.
Okay, good man, John. Good.
I think the plug.
No, we've lost you again. We've lost you again.
Okay, don't move at all.
That's what I said.
Okay.
Sorry, that's what I requested. Sorry.
Okay, so I'm going to read you this. A guy, in fact.
Wait a minute. Sorry, John. I've got to stop you again. I feel like a game show host here. Now, just hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Every time you're moving, you're crackling. But I
All
don't
right.
want you to dodge the question because I think it's very interesting.
No, I'm going to answer it in this way.
Okay. Oh, that's okay. I'm
Okay. I got this message the other day from a guy called Guy, and he says in his text, love caused him to run, and love was burning holes in his soul.
right.
And I text back to him, I wrote that?
Okay.
And he writes, middle of page 78. So, of course, I have to go and look at page 78. Because,
right.
and he says, sounds like a line from a Paul Kelly song. And I text back, you think you will read it? And he says, yeah. And then I let me know, keep an eye on his lyrics.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Because the thing is, here's the thing. As you know, when you're working on a book, you go over it and over it and over it and over it. Here's the thing about me. I am very instinctive and very intuitive, yes. And I know that I do things without knowing them. But when I wrote that bit, I would have been very, very intensely aware of the setup. Precisely where is it? I can't remember that. I can't remember what I did a minute ago. I can't remember what I have. You know what? I have never read since they became books. I've not read Boy on a Wire or To the Highlands again. I've not read them since I finished the editing process. Do you? Here's a question for you. Do you? This is your second novel. Have you reread your first?
No, no way.
No.
No.
So here's a funny story about a fella called Mungo McCullum. Remember Mungo McCullum?
I have no
He's
idea.
a legendary left wing writer.
A left ring writer?
No, left wing.
Are you sure there's any water in that vodka bottle, John?
So, Mark,
Are you sure you're having your sober anniversary?
Yes. So Mungo McCullum, legendary left wing, used to write in a paper called Nation Review, and Mungo happens to be a cousin of a very good friend of mine. And Mungo visited this cousin once, and he was living in a 2-story house with his kids, and the kid went downstairs early one morning. Mungo and his partner were sleeping on the floor on mattresses in a downstairs room, in the lounge room, and he quickly ran back upstairs and he said, Dad, you got to see this. And his dad said, what? He said, come on down. And they sneaked down the stairs, and Mungo McCullum is lying on top of his sleeping bag, naked, reading his own book.
Oh, jeez. Okay. Wow.
That's never going to happen to me or you.
No, I couldn't even, yeah. I can't even look at myself in the mirror, John.
No, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, we should.
I have great difficulty looking at you here and now.
Yeah. Maybe I'll have courage to do that at some stage. Yeah.
One of the things I've noticed about your room there is you don't have. Do you have a window into that room?
Yeah, I do. I do have a window into that room.
Because that light looks fake. Is that you got a light up in your ceiling?
Yes. It's
you see this light.
Well, electricity, John. Yeah.
Oh, right. That's it. See, I don't have any here because that light is all sunlight.
Oh, yeah, but I'm facing direct north, so if I open the big windows here, I will look like Patrick Swayze in Ghost.
Oh, great! I'd love to see it.
And I can't even do any pottery, so I mean, there's going to be problems.
Oh wow, you're pottery as well, are you?
No, I don't. I just said I can't do any pottery. What are you?
No, because my mum were
I can't do any patchwork. Oh, you're doing a bit of patchwork, are you? No, I just said I can't do any patchwork. Right. Yeah.
My mum was a potter.
Your mum was a potter.
Yeah, it's not in the book, I know, because you can't put everything in the book.
Did you go to? You don't put everything in the book. Would you like to tell me where the set? Would you like me to tell you where the setup was for the great bit of writing? That spanned 150 pages.
Yeah, you're going to read out loud.
Am I going to read? Oh no, I wasn't. Well, I wasn't prepared to be reading out loud. No, I'll just tell you. I'll just tell you where it was.
I'll read it out loud.
You what?
Tell me, and I'll read it out loud.
No, I don't know what page it's on. I just remember
Oh.
it.
Tell me, I'll know exactly what page.
You'll know exactly what page. Have you been reading it this morning? Have you done?
Naked in my own room.
Oh my Lord.
Okay, go ahead.
With the fake lights on. Okay, so
Yeah.
There was a phone call from overseas back to
yes,
Norla.
yes, yeah, I remember. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
You think you're talking to
yeah, exactly.
You think you're talking to
what?
I know what's going on. I know what's going on.
And just so you know,
yes, I already know. I just told you I know.
But just so you know.
Hang on. So I tell you what's happening, and now you're going to tell me what's happening. I just told you what's happening.
Just so you know, that phone call, the incident with the check absolutely happened. The phone call never happened. I made it up.
Oh, okay. That makes it even possibly more brilliant.
And here's another thing.
Yes.
As I'm going through the editing process with the editor, at some point I came to the realization that something was missing in Jack's life. And it was a thing that I'd missed in my life. And so I made up a character to plug that hole, completely made up, total fiction. And you know what? I love that character. And every time I would go through the editing process and I would get to that character, I would cry because I was so moved. And now I've gone by him so often, I believe in him. I'm beginning to think that he exists.
Can you explain to the people who haven't yet bought Return Ticket who you're talking about?
I thought you knew.
I know, John. Can you explain to the people who haven't read Return Ticket?
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Let me see if I can find the bit, and I'll read it. So it's I shouldn't tell them that. That'd spoil it for them. Anyway, you read a bit. Go on.
You want me to read a bit of Return Ticket?
Yeah.
All right. This will be the first time I've actually read anything of the book. No, I'm joking.
Sorry, I'm moving. Sorry.
Yeah, you're moving. Yeah, okay.
I know. Sorry about that.
Right. Well, I'm going to open.
Oh, look.
Yes.
Yeah, look at that. That's a photo of my grandmother. Look at that. She's the one. She's this one here.
She's the one on the left or the right?
The one above my finger.
Is she the tall one or the young or the small one?
She's the tall one. That's her sister, the smaller one.
She looks a little bit like the tall fella from Flight of the Conchords.
You're absolutely correct. We're cousins.
Okay, there you go.
No, we're not.
No,
no, we're not. No.
Okay. Chapter 5.
Oh.
Now, I do, actually, before I even start reading, John, I do have some questions about the technicalities of the book.
Yeah, go ahead.
Why have you decided to have no punctuation in here? No
punctuation?
Well, there's a few full stops sprinkled around. There's a couple of commas.
Thank you.
Thrown throughout the book.
Yep.
But there's no quotations. There's no.
I don't like them.
Okay.
They annoy me.
Now, I've read your other book. I didn't notice it. Was it the same for the other?
Yes.
The last one?
Yes.
All right. So you
don't like them.
You're basically like the Australian Cormac McCarthy. Is that what you're saying?
Ooh. Thank you.
Is he up there?
I've got a lot of Cormac up there. Yeah, he's up there.
Which one?
1, 2, 3, 4. They're all there. They're all of them. Yeah, Blood Meridian.
No, hang on. Wait a minute. Now.
What? Don't move. Okay, sorry.
Don't move. On the count of 3.
Yeah.
We're going to do a countdown. We're going to do a 3, 2, 1, and we're going to say our favorite Cormac McCarthy book. Okay.
Oh.
Now you shouldn't even have to think about it. So now it's not going to be a 3, 2, 1. Have you seen Lethal Weapon when they have to jump out of the bathtub?
No.
Okay, it's going to be a 3, 2, 1, and then name it. Okay.
All right, ready? Okay.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Blood.
Horses.
All right, you missed it. You missed the timing, and you missed the wild horses. All the pretty horses is not the best.
Yeah, that's it. That's the one.
No. You've disappointed
No,
me.
no. It's not. No. You didn't ask. You asked me my favourite.
No, I said the best.
Oh, the best. No. I don't do that.
Let's try it again. Let's try the best again.
What's the best Charles Dickens? I don't do it. What's the best Shakespeare? I don't do that.
All right, Oliver and Hamlet. No question, no discussion, not open for debate. Case closed. And if you think any different, go play with the traffic or jump in the river or skate on heavy skates.
I do love Hamlet, yes. But it's not for me. It's not for me to say what's the best. I could never do that.
Oh, I'm quite happy to do that.
Okay, you do it.
All right, Hamlet's the best.
I thought you did that earlier.
Did I?
Yeah. Anyway, go on, read a bit. I want to hear you read it.
This is the best right here. Look at this. At this dual book launch, this is clearly the pick.
Go ahead.
All right, page 127. Now, I also have questions about the chapter titles, and I also have. I will read this, but I also have questions about how it shifts from first to third person as well.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead with the reading.
Whatever you like.
Yeah, whatever I like. All right, like a tall Swedish woman with, okay. Page 127.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'll sit here and wait.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll sit here and wait? What's that?
Wait is nunga emu.
Oh, okay, right. Oh, I've got a picture actually behind me of an emu.
Yeah, I can see it. There it is there.
Okay.
Oh, damn it.
What's that?
What?
Right. Okay.
Go ahead.
I washed like. Hang on. Sorry. I washed like a demon that night, and after throwing my apron aside, instead of joining Neva in her room, I took 2 bottles of Gold Star beer and joined Aria around the fire in the small eucalypt grove between the settlement and the peach orchard. It was the time Aria's 2 friends were also there, Yusef and David. We were all close, but I could not speak of Neva to all 3, only to Aria. David had not long been called up for a tour of army duty, and we were wishing him well and talking about his new stripes. Only 2 stripes, said Aria. It's klum, shum, davar. Nothing. You are an embarrassment to the brotherhood. At least I have 2, he said. But you, my friend, they still have you peeling potatoes. Ken, but have you seen the potatoes? Such monsters, only an expert with a knife could take on such potatoes. We drank, talked, and laughed until the fire died, and before we 2 faded into the coals, we went to our huts and beds. I woke in a daze, remembered Neva, went to her room, but it was empty. Where was she? Who was she with? Why wasn't she waiting for me? Jesus Christ, John. The potent examples of love in this book are very, very beautiful and powerful. And I know that the examples of love that you have written about in this book have made you the man you are, but you also seem to be able to represent the amount of pain that comes with loving different women, multiple women across a lifetime.
Oof. Yes. I have no other thing to say other than yes.
I have no other thing to say but yes.
Just a small pronunciation, if I may correct you. Arie. David. Yusuf.
David?
David.
What does klum shum davar mean?
Nothing.
Is that the little...
That's what it means. Nothing.
Only 2 stripes, said Aria. It's nothing. Is that what it means?
Yes.
It's klum shum.
Klum shum davar. Nothing. What's the matter with you? 2 stripes. That's nothing.
That's nothing.
Yeah.
John, tell me, how on earth does a young man, the boy on the wire,
why
does he decide to go to Israel?
Damn fine question. You want the Jack Muir answer or the Jon Doust answer?
I just want the truth, John.
I was a very intense Christian as a boy. I was the youngest boy ever to be confirmed in the Bridgetown Anglican Church. I was an altar boy from the age of 9. I was an altar boy until I was 17. But I wasn't. I was already. My beliefs were already fading dramatically at 17. I had a sense of this place Palestine, this place Israel, and that I know that was a seed. When I got to South Africa, I met a lot of Jews, and a number of them had been to kibbutz. I was a hippie. I was a hippie philosophic wanderer, and I'd begun to ask all sorts of questions. The more I heard about the kibbutz and I'd begun to read about kibbutz, the more I thought that this is a place I've got to be. I want to experience true socialism. I knew that the so-called communism of the totalitarian states was fake. I wanted to experience the truth of it. In South Africa, of course, I got caught up with drug dealers. There's only one drug dealer in the book, but in actual fact, I got caught up with 3 drug dealers, and I was being followed clearly because rooms I was inhabiting were being raided, and my original plan was either to get on a boat and sail up along the western coast of Africa, or to go overland. But in the end, things were getting a little tight and a little hectic, and I decided to get out of town quickly. So I got on an El Al flight to Israel, and I didn't want to do anything but go. There was also this at this point. This is 1973. There's this sense in the global community that Israel is a state under threat, and it could be crushed any minute. So there was also this sense of me wanting a purpose. I mean, I've been in South Africa for I don't know how long, 8-9 months, and I spent a lot of time doped up, and I was beginning to feel lazy. I was beginning to turn against myself because I had no purpose. I was not doing the thing that I left Management Up to do, to find myself, to find the truth, to find my purpose, to find my path in life. So I went, and I remember, and in fact, the story in the book of how I got to the kibbutz that I got to is a true story. I was wandering around Tel Aviv with a scrap of paper with an address on it of a kibbutz office, and an old man stopped me, an old bent up old man who probably survived Auschwitz, as did Hannah, who the book's dedicated to. He stopped me and he said, what are you doing? Where are you going? I said, I'm looking for this office. He said, that office? What, you want to go to kibbutz? I said, yes, I want to go to kibbutz.
That's
he
not
said,
true.
You really? Huh?
Yeah. That's not the true kibbutz.
Yes. Do you really want to go to kibbutz? Yes, I want. This is not the real kibbutz. You don't want. This kibbutz is chara. Shit. You got a pen? This is a kibbutz. And that's where I went. And he was correct, because the people that I finished up living with belonged to the extreme left of Israel. And they know that particular movement had no kibbutzim in occupied territories. And they had both the kibbutzim that I lived on had very good relationships with the local Palestinian Arabs, and it was the right community for me. Absolutely perfect. And of course, I met 2 women who I subsequently married. Who could wish for more?
A Muslim polygamist, maybe.
So what was the original question? Sorry?
Well, you were on your way to London.
Oh, that's it. I was on my way to London.
So,
eventually I got to London, of course, and all those London, of course, became meaningless after all.
I thought you chose to go to Israel from South Africa.
Yes, I did.
Okay. So
yeah, but after
what made that shift?
Well, my before the war started, the parents of my girlfriend were against our relationship, and in essence, her father chased me off the kibbutz, and I fled. I was distraught, of course, because I was deeply in love.
No, but what made you go from South Africa to Israel instead of South Africa to England?
Oh, that question. I booked a ticket from Fremantle to Southampton.
Yeah.
I got off the ship in Durban. I got off the ship stoned. I stayed stoned, and I missed the ship in Cape Town.
So you couldn't just get on the next one?
No. So basically, what happened was you got off your ship in Durban. A lot of people did this. They got off the ship in Durban. They caught a bus to Cape Town. They got a lift to Cape Town. They met the ship in Cape Town. They got back on the ship and they went to Southampton. All right. I missed the ship.
You wandered into the sordid underbelly of South Africa, Johannesburg, Durban madness,
which you know so well, my friend.
I don't know anything. I don't know anything about anything, John. I don't know anything about anything. So you went.
Yeah. So then I went to London and I got a job on a farm and in a hut. You would have loved it. It was an isolated hut. It was filthy. There was no electricity. There was a stove and an open fireplace. I had to clean up the stove. It only had one plate working. I cleaned up the fireplace. I cut my own wood. I was able to cook just cooked a pot every night. I put stuff in a pot. Yep. And there were no bathroom facilities. There was a toilet. I found at the front of the hut, I found an old horse trough. I cleaned up the horse trough surrounded by stinging nettles. I hate those stinging nettles. I cleaned it up. And what I used to do was I'd boil about 3 pots of water, hot water, steaming hot water, put them in the horse trough, and then fill the rest up, not fill up, but enough to get to my waist with cold water. Before all that, I would build a fire because it's cold, of course. I'd build a fire. I'd take all my clothes off in front of the fire, run out of the house naked, jump into the horse trough. And this only once a week, by the way, because I'm not going to do that every night. I'm working on the farm. I'm pulling hops. And when you pull hops, the pollen comes out of the hop flowers and impregnates your skull. So every night I'm sleeping full of hop stench and my own stench. And once a week I would jump into this horse trough, finish washing, back into the house, dry myself in front of this hot fire. Well, of course the fire's hot. What's the matter with you? Dry myself.
I'm glad you cleared that up for our listeners overseas, John. I'm glad you cleared that up. Fire's hot, folks, and make sure you pay attention.
Nobody knows better than us, Aussies.
No, you painted the Australians as warriors in the book.
Well, of course, my second kibbutz was down on the Gaza Strip, and the Gaza Strip, as you well know, scene of 3 dramatic battles: Gaza 1, Gaza 2, Gaza 3, which was highlighted by there were two scenes of the Gaza 3 battle. The best known, of course, was the charge of the light horsemen from the 4th Brigade at Beersheba. And of course, our kibbutz was not very, we were about, I don't know, can't remember exactly, 80 kilometers from Beersheba. So, and the thing was, Adam, when I got to Israel, there were because I'd grown up on a farm, I could shoot a gun, I could drive a tractor, I could swing an axe and a hoe and a shovel. And the kibbutzniks really admired people who could work. Yeah. And they had this thing, so I was embraced very quickly. People were knocking on my door and offering their daughters, but not all of them, obviously. There were a couple of issues here and there.
Offering their daughters? Now, John, tell me.
Just a second, one more minute. Because the other thing was, the older people, the people who'd who were aware of, uh, of, of, of the First World War and the Second World War had this wonderful image of Australians as warriors. And of course, the other thing we shared was that we, both of us, in theory, both the Aussies and the Israelis, the diehard Israelis, we both hated the British.
Yes.
So we had this in common, and it was a common topic of conversation. And so when I went back to Israel, because, by the way, of my mother and because of Hannah, who said to her daughter, "I'm terribly, terribly sorry. We made a big mistake. We don't know what happened to us. Please contact your boyfriend, John, and tell him that your relationship is okay with us." Oh, you can imagine the weeping. Oh my God. How could you forget those two women, Adam? Massive, massive, massive shifts. Massive, unbelievable. So, and when I went back, of course, all the young men are away, all the middle-aged men are away. Who's running the kibbutz? High school students, old people, and volunteers like me. And in time of war in Israel, the vast majority of volunteers are Jewish, and the vast majority of them, obviously, because home to the biggest Jewish population on the planet, from the United States of America. So when I got there, there's about 30 volunteers there, and only 2 of us, I think, weren't Jewish. One of them was a Vietnam vet, and they gave us both. Yeah, so they gave us a Yank. So they gave us. He worked in the he was with the beef producers, the cowboys as we called them. So they gave him a Jeep and a gun, and they gave me a tractor and a gun, and that's how we flew. They took to us, people like us, and of course he was an aberration among Americans, because most of your Americans, Jewish or non-Jewish, were city people. They couldn't drive a tractor. They couldn't drive a bloke insane. Oh, hang on, no, they could. Sorry, they could. The only thing they could drive was a bloke insane.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Now, on the point of good writing, John.
Yes. Please, Adam, ask a question by all means.
Which I believe. Well, I'm trying to. I'm trying to get one in any time I can, John. Don't you worry about that. Yeah, I've been to the Ed McMurrow School of Journalism. I'm trying to get one in there. Now, what I was most impressed about this book. Where's the book? For the people watching at home, there it is, right there. Well, I've got the second copy. Don't worry about it, John.
Okay, thank you.
I've got the other one.
Right.
What I was most impressed about this book, yes, there was gravitas. Yes, there was. Are you crying, John? What are you?
No. Well, I might have been earlier.
Okay, that's all right. Yes, there was profundity. Yes, there was gravitas. Yes, there was weeping of the reader. But the book was incredibly playfully written. The book reads like the writer had fun writing it. This did not read. Now I've read. Now, John.
Yeah.
I've read a couple of books. Not many,
okay.
but I've read a couple.
Yeah.
Right. This is my second one that I've read. Sometimes you read a book, and it's like you're reading a book that's been written by a bricklayer, and they're sludging it, and they're putting the brick on, and they're putting cement on, and they're putting another brick on the top, and then they're putting more sludge on it, and it's hard work, and it's humorless. Yeah. It's humorlessness. It's hard going. It's boring. There's no electricity. Your book is. I reckon I could heat the upstairs of my house with your book, just by putting it up there. There is a playfulness, yet it still hits the bases of profundity. It still hits the basis of gravitas. It still makes you weep every now and then. And I think sorry, John. John is putting his finger up for the listeners who are only dealing with audio. John has just put his finger up. He's coming back into the frame. What's he bringing in here? He's holding up the Greek masks of happy and tragedy.
And the plaque reads, yes. Life can be so tragic, it's comic.
Yes. And
the other way around.
Yes, beautiful. Okay, now if I can play with that a little bit, one of my favorite films of all time, and I don't think it's just my favorite film, I think it's actually one of the greatest films of all time. It's up there with The Godfather 1, it's up there with Godfather 2, it's up there with The Bicycle Thief, it's up there with you name it. Dumb and Dumber with Jim Carrey and Jeff Bridges. That film is a masterpiece. That film will be viewed with historic respect, the same way that Charlie Chaplin is viewed now in 100 years' time.
I've never seen it.
You've never seen it?
No.
Well, guess what you're doing tonight, John?
No, I'm in bed at 8 o'clock.
You're in bed at 8 o'clock. It's okay. It's fine. Now,
which reminds me, we're over time because my partner's going to need to lie down in a minute.
Okay. Now, okay.
Yeah. And then we're going to come back and we're going to do you.
No, I thought that was okay. Now, John, tell everybody where they can get.
What happens? You can get it on Kindle, Kodogo, and Go, all those places. You can get them all. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it anywhere. If you go to a place, if you want a hard copy and you go there and they don't have it, sorry, I moved. Stamp your feet. Demand it. It's available.
So you've heard it here. If you walk into a coffee shop and they haven't got John's book, stamp your feet, and they will get it somehow.
This book was enthralling. I started I told you what I thought. I don't have to say anything else. Gripping, sickening, horrifying, moving, shaming. We all bear responsibility for what goes on in the underbelly. And I'd like to talk about the pandemic, but we don't have enough time because the pandemic reveals to us certain things that we should be very, very aware of. Who are suffering most in this pandemic? Apart from, of course, here where we live, the vast bulk, 2/3 of the people in this country are those who came off cruise ships and overseas travelers. But in those places where the pandemic has hit hard, look at who's suffering the most.
Who is suffering the most?
We know the high profiles. We know the Borises and the poor buggers who die, Tim Brooke Taylor and that Prine fellow, the Muso. But
did when John you Prine look at die?
What happened, yeah, he's dead.
John Prine died from coronavirus.
Yeah. It's those people who are clustered, and who are they? The disenfranchised, the poor. Why are they so worried about the Kimberley, the place in the outer communities? Because if the virus gets into those places, dead. When it's the healthcare workers. The healthcare workers. There's a big cluster at the moment in New South Wales. The healthcare workers. These are the vulnerable people, those at the forefront, those on the front line, and the poor, the alienated, the disenfranchised because of the way they live, because of the clustering. There's two good things, Adam, about this particular thing, I think, so far. There'll be more. One is the world's carbon footprint collapsed. The other thing is a lot of governments are instituting policies and agendas that many have considered to be so-called, I'm not going to do that, I hate that, socialist. Well, and in this country, one of the things we've come to terms with is there's a whole lot of stuff we need to be making here. If we got to wait 6 weeks for something to come from somewhere else that's vital to our survival, This isn't good enough. We need to be making this stuff here. Governments, we're the government, we step back, we don't get involved. Governments, I'm terribly sorry, they make policies. Governments are learning through this pandemic, not all, but some. Certainly ours has learned. Look at the policies instituted by the Australian government. They are so-called socialist in look, in theory, at their core. It's going to be very interesting how we all come out of this.
Now,
and thank God, if I may, Adam, thank God Tony Abbott won't come back, because if he come back, he'd chuck it all out.
Okay, well, regardless of Tony Abbott, let me say, now I know you are a hardcore socialist.
True, not fake.
No,
true.
I would say hardcore / true socialist. So there was no discrepancy. There was no. All I would say, John, as we give the heart out, all I would say was, if you wanted kibbutzism to fully, what would be 30 seconds, maybe you should have talked a little bit more about the bloody orgies and a little bit less about the work, and the whole world would be bloody socialists. All right, and that is the book launch for Bird and Jon Doust's amazing work. Return ticket, and good night. And
may I say in final,
yes,
we didn't spend enough time on the Bird, and we will come back. It's my promise.